Do you ever feel exhausted after a conversation? A sense of energy depletion, as if someone just drained your life force, leaving behind a weary and confused emptiness. Your mind replays the dialogue over and over, analyzing every word, every glance, trying to figure out where you went wrong. A voice whispers in your mind, sowing seeds of doubt. Maybe I was too sensitive? What did I do to make them treat me like that? Why do I always feel terrible after seeing that person? That feeling, that sense of being drained, belittled, manipulated, it's not just your imagination. It is a real psychological wound, an invisible burden you carry every day. You feel like an empty shell, having lost your inherent confidence and joy. You start walking on eggshells around certain people, fearing that one wrong word will trigger an emotional storm. You feel lonely, even in a crowd, and worst of all, you start to believe the criticisms, the slights they direct at you. The pain you feel is real, and it needs to be acknowledged. But the story you tell yourself about the source of that pain, about its meaning, is what keeps you imprisoned. This guide is not just a collection of coping tips. This is a path, a journey, illuminated by the ancient wisdom of Buddhism, designed not only to help you protect your energy, but also to transform this very pain into your greatest source of strength and deepest peace. Together, we will explore a new story, a story not of endurance, but of liberation, a story in which the most painful encounters become the most precious opportunities for your growth. To begin the healing journey, we must first name and validate our experience. The feeling of being energy drained is not a vague or metaphysical concept. It is a real psychological phenomenon, documented and studied. When we talk about toxic people, we are not making a clinical diagnosis, but describing individuals with patterns of behavior that are emotionally and psychologically harmful to others. These behaviors create an unhealthy interactive environment, leaving deep scars on the spirit of the recipient. Common signs of a person with toxic behaviors include frequently disrespecting your boundaries, even after you've clearly stated them, manipulating or controlling others to get what they want, their life always revolving around endless drama and conflict. They often lie, even about small things. They never admit they are wrong and always find ways to blame others, turning themselves into the victim. They tend to be judgmental, critical, and demeaning to others, and the relationship with them is often one-sided, where they only take and do not give. Frequent exposure to these behaviors causes serious psychological consequences. It erodes your self-esteem slowly but surely, causing you to start doubting your own worth. It pushes you into a state of chronic stress and anxiety, as you always have to be on guard, walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. Over time, this condition can lead to symptoms of depression, a pervasive sense of insecurity, and isolation. This phenomenon of energy drain is called social fatigue or emotional exhaustion in modern psychology. It is a state of mental and emotional depletion that occurs when a person must constantly face negative interactions, requiring great emotional effort to cope. Its symptoms are very specific. You become irritable, easily angered by trivial matters. You find it difficult to make decisions. You lose the ability to concentrate, feeling your mind is empty, and you feel physically tired for no apparent reason. Validating that energy drain is a real psychological phenomenon is the first and most important step. It helps us shift from self-blame, why am I so weak, to problem recognition, I am in an unhealthy interaction and is affecting my health. This acknowledgement creates a solid foundation, a bridge between your experience of suffering and the healing methods of Buddhism. These teachings are no longer distant spiritual ideals, but become practical tools with a clear purpose to solve an existing psychological problem. After validating our pain, the next step on the healing path requires a courageous shift in perspective, from looking outward at the person who hurt us to looking inward at our own minds. Buddhism teaches that while the external trigger may be the spark, the deep root of all suffering, dukkha, lies within. That source is called the three poisons, trivisha, or the three unwholesome roots, akushala mula: greed, raga or lobha, aversion, vesha or dosa, and ignorance, moha or avidya. These are the three basic mental states identified as the root cause of all suffering and the main obstacles on the path to spiritual liberation. They are depicted as three animals: a rooster, greed; a snake, aversion; and a pig, ignorance, at the center of the wheel of becoming, bhavakakra, symbolizing how they drive the cycle of suffering. Let's analyze how these three poisons manifest in our own minds when facing a toxic person. Greed, attachment, raga. This is craving, clinging, and desire. In a toxic interaction, greed is not just material desire. It is our intense craving for the other person to be kind. It is clinging to a vision of a peaceful conversation. It is the thirst for their approval, validation, or simply the desire for them to change. Every time we think, if only they hadn't said that, or why can't they understand me? That is the voice of greed. We are clinging to an outcome we cannot control, and this clinging creates disappointment and suffering. Aversion, hatred, dasha. This is resistance, hatred, and anger. This is the most noticeable poison. It is the anger that flares up when we hear a criticism. It is the simmering resentment over past hurts. It is the desperate wish to escape their presence, to push them away. Every time we indulge in retaliatory thoughts or feel our heart tighten with hatred, that is aversion burning our mind. This resistance not only causes us suffering in the present, but also sows the seeds of future suffering. Ignorance, delusion, moha. This is delusion, confusion, and the root of both greed and aversion. In this context, ignorance is the false belief that our inner peace depends on the behavior of others. It is the delusion that their attacks are aimed at a solid, unchanging, and real self. We mistakenly believe that if they change, we will be happy. This ignorance leads us to hand over control of our happiness to another person, someone whose actions are governed by their own suffering. When viewed this way, we arrive at a revolutionary conclusion. Our emotional reactions, the pain, the anger, the exhaustion, are symptoms that our inner poisons are being activated. The toxic person is just the trigger, the catalyst, but the gunpowder is already present in our minds. This understanding is not to blame ourselves, but to empower us. Because if the source of suffering lies within us, then the key to liberation is also in our hands. We cannot change others, but we can absolutely transform the poisons in our own minds. Once we recognize that our reactions stem from the three poisons within, we can take a leap in perception, applying that same lens of understanding to the person we call toxic. This is the first and core step to developing a compassionate response rather than a hateful one. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught a profound lesson. When another person makes you suffer, it is because he suffers deeply within himself, and his suffering is spilling over. He does not need punishment, he needs help. This teaching is not a blind condoning of harmful behavior. It is an invitation to look deeper, beyond the surface behavior, to see its root cause. Let's try to analyze the toxic behaviors we identified in Chapter 1 through the lens of their own three poisons. Their need for control and manipulation is actually a form of greed. It is a desperate craving for a sense of security, power, or validation that they cannot generate from within. They cling to controlling others as a way to fill the void in their own souls. Their criticism, anger, and hostility are manifestations of aversion. It is an attempt to push away their own feelings of insecurity, inferiority, and weakness by projecting them onto others. By putting you down, they temporarily feel superior. Their lack of self-awareness, refusal to take responsibility, and constant victimhood are a form of ignorance. It is a deep delusion about the true cause of their own unhappiness. They are trapped in the illusion that the external world is the source of all problems, not realizing that their own unhealed mind is the cause. To illustrate this powerful principle, there is no story in the Buddhist scriptures more profound than that of Angulimala. Angulimala was a notorious mass murderer who had killed 999 people and wore a necklace made from his victims' fingers. He was the embodiment of brutality. When the Buddha confronted Angulimala, he did not react to his horrific actions. Instead, the Buddha saw the deep delusion and immense suffering that was driving Angulimala. He did not see a monster, but a person drowning in ignorance. It was through this compassionate and insightful gaze that the Buddha was able to speak the words that awakened Angulimala, leading to his complete transformation from a murderer to an arahant, an enlightened being. This story shows that no one is beyond the reach of compassion. And the worst behavior often stems from the greatest suffering. When we combine the last two chapters, we arrive at a deeper truth. A toxic conflict is not a one-way attack, but a collision of sufferings. It is a tragic loop. Their inner suffering spills out as toxic behavior. That behavior triggers our inner suffering, anger and hurt, and then we project our suffering back, often confirming their worldview that the world is hostile, which in turn reinforces their toxic patterns. Viewing this dynamic not as a simple victim-aggressor model, but as a complex and interdependent dance of suffering, dukkha, is crucial. It shows that the only point where we can intervene to break the loop is by changing our own inner state, as we cannot directly control theirs. One of the main reasons we get stuck in pain after a toxic encounter is the feeling that the hurt is solid, heavy, and permanent. The anger seems like it will never subside. The sadness feels like it will last forever. We cling to these emotions, believing they are an inherent part of who we are. However, one of the most fundamental and liberating teachings of the Buddha is anicca, or impermanence. Anicca is the truth that everything, without exception, is in a state of constant flux. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. All things are like a river, always flowing. Mountains erode, stars are born and die, and even our thoughts and emotions are constantly arising and passing away. When we apply this principle directly to the aftermath of a toxic interaction, we find a vast space of freedom. The sharp sting of anger you feel when criticized is not a solid entity. It is just a fleeting mental event, arising and passing away in a moment. The heavy feeling of sadness in your chest is not the permanent climate of your soul. It is just a weather pattern passing through. When you truly observe, you will see that no emotion stays the same for even a few seconds. It transforms, rises, falls, and changes in intensity. Our clinging to these emotions, the mistaken belief that I am angry, instead of there is a feeling of anger arising in me, is what turns a fleeting emotion into prolonged suffering. Understanding anicca helps us loosen that grip. We learn to watch these emotional waves without being swept away by them. To practice this, try a short contemplation. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Bring your attention to your breath, feeling the air move in and out. The in-breath is not the same as the out-breath. Each breath is unique, an event of arising and passing. Now expand your awareness to your whole body. Perhaps you feel a tightness in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach. Don't try to change it. Just observe it, note it, and see if it changes. Maybe it will soften, maybe it will move. That sensation is impermanent. Finally, notice any emotions that are present. Anger, sadness, anxiety. Don't analyze the story behind it. Just feel it as an energy in the body. Does it feel hot or cold, vibrating or still? Observe it with curiosity, like a scientist observing a natural phenomenon. You will see that, like the breath and bodily sensations, emotions are also constantly changing. It is not you. It is just a visitor passing through. By practicing this observation, we stop feeding negative emotions through clinging and identifying with them. We let them naturally arise, exist, and then naturally pass away, like clouds drifting across the sky of the mind. This is the liberation that the wisdom of anicca offers. If anicca, impermanence, addresses the feeling that our pain is permanent, then anatta, not self, addresses the feeling that the pain is deeply personal. When someone insults or criticizes us, our immediate reaction is, they are attacking me. We feel hurt because we have a strong concept of a self, a solid, separate entity that is the center of our experiential universe. It is this self that feels threatened, belittled, and wounded. However, the Buddhist teaching of anatta offers a radical challenge to this notion. Anatta does not mean that we do not exist. It means that there is no unchanging, independent, permanent self or soul that can be found within or apart from the components that make up a person. What we call self or I is actually a dynamic, ever-changing process, an interdependent combination of physical elements, body, feeling, sensation, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. It is like a car. We call it a car, but there is no car soul that exists independently of the parts like wheels, engine, and frame. Car is just a conventional name for an assembly of parts working together. So when a toxic person says you are stupid, what are they insulting? Are they insulting a fleeting thought in your head? Or a sensation arising in your body? Or a memory from the past? When we contemplate deeply, we realize that there is no fixed, unchanging target for the insult to stick to and cause harm. The feeling of being hurt is itself another not-self phenomenon, an unpleasant sensation that arises and will pass, not, I am hurt. Understanding Anna creates a liberating space between the stimulus, their words, and our response. Instead of reacting automatically and personally, they hate me, we can observe the entire process more objectively. A sound entered the ear. A thought interpreting that sound as an insult arose. An unpleasant feeling in the chest arose. By depersonalizing the experience, we take away the power of the words. It is no longer a poison arrow aimed at the heart of the self, but just an impermanent, ownerless event unfolding in the field of awareness. Practicing this does not mean we become emotionless or allow others to abuse us. Boundaries are still essential, as we will discuss in Part 4. But the foundation for our actions has changed. Instead of acting from a wounded self seeking to defend itself, we act from wisdom and compassion, recognizing that both their hurtful words and our unpleasant feelings are manifestations of an interdependent, impermanent, and not-self process. This is the shift from reactivity to conscious responsiveness, and that is the doorway to true freedom. One of the biggest and most energy-consuming burdens we carry after being mistreated is resentment and the desire for revenge or for justice to be served. We obsess over the injustice, replaying what happened in our minds, and feeling that we must do something to make them pay. This burden can eat us away from the inside, making us prisoners of our own past. The Buddhist teaching of karma offers a powerful escape from this prison. First, it's important to understand karma correctly. Karma is not a system of reward and punishment managed by some divine being. It is simply a natural law of cause and effect, like the law of gravity. The word karma means action or deed. The law states wholesome actions, Pali, kusalakama, rooted in generosity, kindness, and wisdom, will naturally lead to the result of happiness and well-being. Conversely, unwholesome actions, Pali, akusalakama, rooted in the three poisons, greed, aversion, ignorance, will inevitably lead to the result of suffering. When we apply this law to our situation, a liberating truth emerges. The other person's toxic behavior, their manipulation, their anger, their venomous words are unwholesome actions. According to the law of karma, by those very actions, they are actively sowing the seeds of their own future suffering. They do not need us to punish them. Their actions are the punishment. In the very moment they harm another, they are creating the conditions for their own future unhappiness. This profound insight frees us from the self-appointed job of being their judge, jury, and executioner. Their karma is their responsibility. Our responsibility is for our own karma, to ensure that our response is skillful, non-harming, and does not plant more seeds of hatred in our own minds. By holding on to resentment, we are making ourselves suffer for someone else's karma. By letting go, we are protecting our own future peace. The Jataka tale of the Ruru deer wonderfully illustrates this principle. In a past life, the Bodhisattva was reborn as a golden deer named Ruru. He saved a man from drowning. Later, out of greed for a reward, this man betrayed the deer, showing the king where it lived. When captured, the Ruru deer did not react with hatred or a desire for revenge. Instead, he calmly spoke the truth, pointing out the man's ungrateful action. The deer understood that the man's unwholesome act had itself already created a negative karmic result for him. Understanding karma allows us to establish an ultimate energetic and psychological boundary. We can silently declare, your actions and their consequences belong entirely to you. I will not carry the burden of your karma by holding on to resentment. My actions and their consequences belong to me, and I choose to act with wisdom and peace. This is not passive resignation. This is an active and powerful act of liberation, returning an unnecessary burden to its owner. The immense energy once consumed by the desire for revenge is now freed up for us to use for our own healing and the cultivation of our own happiness. Having equipped ourselves with the profound insights of impermanence, not self, and karma, we can now approach the most powerful practical toolkit for inner transformation in the face of toxicity. These are the four immeasurables, also known as the Brahmaviharas, divine abodes. These are four sublime states of mind that, when cultivated, become a steadfast dwelling place for the soul, capable of sheltering and protecting us from all storms. The four states are loving kindness, metta, compassion, karun, sympathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, dukkha. Instead of viewing them as a menu of individual options, it is far more effective to approach them as a sequential system of defense and transformation, a step-by-step heart training program. 1. Step 1, defense, loving kindness, metta. The first and most important step is to protect yourself. Trying to feel compassionate for someone who is abusing you while you yourself are breaking down is a form of self-harm and spiritual bypassing. The priority is to build a solid foundation of self-love and resilience by practicing metta for yourself. This is putting on your armor before going into battle. 2. Step 2, skillful engagement, compassion, karun. Once your heart is stable and sheltered, you can then safely look at the other person's suffering without being overwhelmed or drawn into their negative vortex. Compassion, karun, can only arise authentically from a strong heart. 3. Step 3, the antidote to side effects, sympathetic joy, mudita. As you begin to heal, another toxic emotion may arise. Resentment or envy when you see others happy, especially when the toxic person seems to be getting away with it unpunished. Mudita, or sympathetic joy, is the specific antidote for this type of poison, helping us rejoice in the joy of others and breaking the comparison mentality. Step 4, the ultimate fortress, equanimity, upekkha. The final goal is not to always be actively sending loving kindness, but to reach a state of unshakable balance where you are no longer affected by the ups and downs of the world. Upekkha, or equanimity, is the fortress built on the solid foundations of loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. This sequential system transforms the four immeasurables from abstract concepts into a practical, powerful, and comprehensive strategy for protecting your energy and finding peace. Metta, often translated as loving kindness or benevolence, is the state of unconditional, non-judgmental love that does not expect anything in return. It is pure friendliness and goodwill, directed toward the happiness and well-being of all beings. The most important thing in the practice of metta is that it must begin with oneself. We cannot give what we do not have. Trying to love others while being full of self-criticism and self-hatred is a futile effort. When facing toxic people, we are often attacked at our weakest points. Their words can trigger our inner critic, stirring up feelings of inferiority, self-doubt, and unworthiness. Therefore, practicing metta for oneself is the direct antidote to these toxins. It is like building an energetic shield, an emotional armor that helps us become more resilient and less vulnerable to negative words and actions from the outside. Step-by-step metta meditation guide. Find a quiet place and sit in a comfortable posture. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths to relax your body and mind. Phase 1, for yourself. Imagine a warm, gentle light at the center of your chest. With each in-breath, feel this light expand, filling your body with a sense of peace and acceptance. Silently repeat the following phrases, letting their meaning sink into your heart. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Spend at least 5 minutes on this phase. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the phrases and the warm feeling. Phase 2, for a teacher or benefactor. Think of someone who has helped you, a teacher, or someone you respect. Imagine them sitting in front of you. Send them the warm light from your heart and silently repeat, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. Phase 3, for a dear friend. Now think of a close friend, someone you love. Feel the natural affection you have for them. Send them these good wishes. May you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. Phase 4, for a neutral person. Think of someone for whom you have no particular feelings, perhaps the cashier at the grocery store, or a colleague you rarely speak to. Recognize that this person also wishes to be happy, just like you. Send your loving kindness to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Note that in this practice, we will temporarily not direct loving kindness to the difficult person. That requires a strengthened heart and will be practiced in the next chapter on compassion, karuna. By practicing metta regularly, you are building a safe home within yourself. Your self-esteem will be strengthened, and you will realize that your worth does not depend on anyone's approval or judgment. This armor of loving kindness will help you stand firm against negative storms, protecting your precious energy and peace. After strengthening the defensive armor of loving kindness, metta, we have enough strength and stability to move on to a deeper and more challenging practice: compassion, karuna. Karuna is compassion, the strong wish for a being to be free from suffering. This is not pity. It is important to distinguish karuna from its near enemy, pity. Pity creates distance. Oh, that poor person. It places us in a superior position, looking down on the suffering of others. In contrast, true compassion, karuna, comes from the recognition of our shared humanity and suffering. I understand this feeling. I also suffer in similar ways. It is an empathetic connection, a sharing of pain. How can we feel compassion for the person who hurt us? The key lies in directly connecting with the understanding we built in Chapter 3. Their toxic behavior is an expression of their suffering. Their anger is the scream of their pain. Their manipulation is the desperate effort of their insecurity. Their criticism is the projection of their self-loathing. Therefore, when we practice karuna, we are not wishing for them to be free from punishment, but for them to be free from the very poisons of greed, aversion, and ignorance that are burning them from within and causing them to harm others. This is an act of wisdom, not weakness. It is not about condoning the action, but about freeing ourselves from the chains of hatred. Karuna Meditation Guide for a Difficult Person. Begin the meditation as you did with metta, spending a few minutes sending loving kindness to yourself to strengthen your inner stability. 1. Bring the image of the difficult person to mind. Choose someone who has caused you difficulty. If this is your first time, choose someone who is only mildly difficult. Don't choose your worst enemy right away. Bring their image or the feeling of them to mind. 2. Acknowledge their suffering. Instead of focusing on what they did to you, try to contemplate their own suffering. Remember that their behavior stems from greed, aversion, and ignorance. Try to imagine them as a wounded child, acting out of fear and confusion. 3. Send compassion with phrases. From your heart, silently send them these wishes. Try to feel the true meaning behind each phrase. Oh, may you be free from your pain and sorrow. Oh, may you be free from your anger and fear. May you be healed. Oh, may you find peace. 4. Deal with resistance. It is very likely that as you practice, negative emotions like anger, resentment, or fear will arise in you. This is completely natural. Don't try to suppress them. Instead, acknowledge them. A feeling of anger is arising. Return to yourself. Temporarily stop directing compassion to the other person and return to sending loving kindness to your own emotion. May this feeling of anger be at peace. May I be at peace with this anger. Gently return. When the emotion has subsided, gently return to directing compassion to the other person. Practicing karuna for those who cause harm is one of the most advanced and transformative practices. It is not about forcing yourself to feel warm towards them. It is an act of wisdom, recognizing that by wishing for them to be free from suffering, we are also freeing ourselves from the poison of hatred. Compassion becomes the sword of wisdom, cutting the cord of enmity that binds you both. As we begin our healing journey, a subtle but highly toxic emotion can creep into our minds: resentment and envy. We might think, why do I have to work on healing while they are living happily? Or, it's unfair that they succeed while I have to suffer the consequences of their actions. These thoughts, if not recognized, can become a major obstacle on the path to finding peace. The specific antidote for this type of poison in the Bodhisattva's toolkit is mudita, also known as sympathetic joy or altruistic joy. Mudita is the ability to feel genuine joy at the happiness, success, and good fortune of others. It is the direct antidote to envy, jealousy, and resentment, emotions that often arise from a scarcity mentality, a false belief that happiness is a limited resource and that someone else's success means there is less for us. Mudita challenges this thinking by pointing out that joy is infinite. When we can rejoice in the joy of others, we open up countless opportunities for happiness. Instead of only being able to be happy when good things happen to us, we can now be happy with every success, every smile, every moment of happiness of everyone around us. Our hearts become more open and abundant. The story of the Buddha and the happy beggar perfectly illustrates the power and virtue of mudita. One day, a wealthy king offered a magnificent meal to the Buddha and his Sangha. On their way to the palace, they passed a beggar. The beggar, though having nothing, smiled radiantly and sincerely praised the success and beauty of the king's palace. After the meal, the Buddha dedicated the merit to the beggar instead of the king. When the monks asked in surprise why, the Buddha explained that the king gave from his wealth, which added to his pride. But the beggar, who had nothing, could feel genuine joy at another success. That was a much greater and rarer virtue. How to practice mudita in daily life. Practicing mudita does not require formal meditation. It can be integrated into every moment of life. Start with loved ones. When you hear that a friend got a promotion, a relative had a joyful trip, or your child achieved something good, pause for a moment. Instead of just saying congratulations mechanically, really feel their joy. Imagine their smile. Feel their excitement. Let their joy spread to you. 2. Extend to neutral people. When you read news about a stranger winning an award or see a couple laughing happily in the park, silently wish for their joy to multiply. May your joy continue and grow. 3. The challenge with difficult people. This is the hardest step. When you see the person who hurt you experiencing something good, try to recognize that happiness might lessen their inner suffering, the very suffering that caused them to harm you. Try to think, may this joy help you heal, so that you no longer cause suffering to others. Practicing mudita is a positive act of reprogramming the mind, shifting from the habit of comparison and envy to the habit of connection and shared joy. It breaks the illusion of separation and reinforces the truth of interdependence. When we can truly rejoice in the joy of others, resentment has no place to stand. Our hearts become lighter, more open, and full of joy. After building the armor of loving kindness, sharpening the sword of compassion, and practicing the alchemy of sympathetic joy, we arrive at the pinnacle of the four immeasurables, upekkha, or equanimity. This is the final fortress, the safest refuge for the soul. Upekkha is often misunderstood as indifference, apathy, or aloofness, but this is a grave mistake. Indifference is the near enemy of equanimity. It looks similar, but is actually the opposite. Indifference is a closed heart, withdrawing from life out of fear or boredom. In contrast, upekkha is a heart that is wide open, courageous, and fully engaged in life, but is not attached to or disturbed by its ups and downs. It is a state of deep, unshakable balance, rooted in wisdom. In the context of dealing with toxic people, upekkha is the ultimate form of energy protection. It is the ability to remain calm amidst the 8 worldly winds, athalokadhamma, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Toxic people often use these winds to manipulate us. They praise to entice, blame to belittle. They bring us false pleasure when they are pleased and pain when we do not do as they wish. A mind without upekkha will be blown about by these winds, constantly oscillating between hope and disappointment, anxiety and relief. Equanimity breaks this dependency. It comes from a deep understanding of impermanence and karma. We understand that praise and blame are impermanent. They come and go. We understand that the happiness and suffering of others depend on their own karma, not on our wishes or actions. This understanding cuts the unhealthy entanglement and the exhausting sense of responsibility for the toxic person's state of mind. Upekkha Meditation Guide. Sit in your familiar meditation posture. Begin by sending loving kindness to yourself to create a warm and accepting space. 1. Contemplate the 8 worldly winds. Bring each opposing pair to mind and observe your reaction. Oh, praise and blame. Recall a time you were praised. What did that feel like in your body? Was there any clinging? Now recall a time you were blamed. How did that feel? Was there any aversion? Observe both as impermanent phenomena. Oh, gain and loss. Imagine gaining something you deeply desire. Then imagine losing it. Observe the rising and falling of emotions without identifying with them. Oh, pleasure and pain. Similarly, observe pleasant and unpleasant sensations in the body and mind, recognizing that they are just temporary visitors. Oh, fame and disrepute. Contemplate the desire for recognition and the fear of being forgotten. See that your true worth does not depend on these things. 2. Use the phrases of equanimity. Now, direct your mind to the difficult person. Instead of wishing for them to change, send equanimity with the understanding of the law of karma. Oh, all beings are the owners of their own karma. Your happiness and suffering depend on your actions, not on my wishes for you. Oh, may you find peace right where you are. I hold you in my heart, but I release the outcome. Practicing upaka does not mean you stop caring. On the contrary, it allows you to care more deeply and sustainably, because your love is no longer conditioned by the other person's behavior. You can love without needing them to change. You can care without being exhausted. Your heart becomes an unshakable fortress, a refuge of peace, impenetrable to the chaos from outside. This is ultimate freedom. After building a solid inner foundation through understanding the core principles and cultivating the four immeasurables, we are now ready to explore how to manifest this wisdom in the external world. Protecting our energy and peace is not just an internal process. It also involves interacting with difficult people skillfully and intentionally. This section will provide practical tools rooted in the Eightfold Path so that you can act compassionately yet firmly, protecting your space without sowing more seeds of suffering. One of the most common and damaging misconceptions in spiritual life is the idea that compassion means becoming a doormat, that loving means having to accept all behaviors, no matter how harmful. This is completely contrary to the wisdom of Buddhism. Setting healthy boundaries is not a selfish or uncompassionate act. On the contrary, it is an essential expression of right effort, samavayama, and a profound act of compassion for both yourself and the other person. Right effort is the sixth factor in the Eightfold Path and includes four main efforts. 1. To prevent unwholesome, negative mental states from arising. 2. To abandon unwholesome mental states that have already arisen. 3. To arouse wholesome, positive mental states that have not yet arisen. 4. To maintain and perfect wholesome mental states that have already arisen. When viewed through this lens, setting boundaries becomes a clear spiritual practice. Allowing toxic behavior to continue is a lack of effort because it creates the conditions for unwholesome states, such as our anger, their cruelty, to arise and persist. Therefore, saying no clearly, setting a firm boundary, is a direct application of the first two efforts in right effort. It is the dynamic will to prevent and abandon unwholesome states for both parties. This action not only protects your peace, maintaining a wholesome state, but also prevents the other person from creating more negative karma. In a sense, preventing someone from harming you is also an act of compassion towards them. 4 steps to practice mindfulness-based boundary setting. 5. Recognize. Practice mindfulness of your emotional body. Learn to recognize when something feels off, even if you can't name it yet. It might be a knot in your stomach, a tightness in your shoulders, or a vague sense of unease. This is your internal alarm system at work. 6. Recollect. When you recognize the alarm signal, bring your mindfulness back to the physical body to be fully present with a clear mind. Feel the soles of your feet on the floor, feel your hands, and find your breath. This helps you return to yourself, to the stability of reality, instead of being swept away by the story in your head. 7. Discern. Consciously acknowledge that a boundary is being crossed and that you have the right to protect yourself. At this point, you know something is emotionally wrong, you are present in your body, and you affirm that you do not have to feel this way. 8. Act. Now you are ready to act. To protect yourself with words or actions as skillfully as possible, act rationally, not impulsively. Examples of compassionate boundary language. Effective language often stems from using I statements instead of you statements, focusing on your feelings and needs instead of blaming the other person. Instead of, stop yelling at me, or try, I find it very difficult to continue this conversation when voices are being raised. I need for us to speak more calmly. Instead of, you're being unreasonable and selfish. Try, I understand that you have a need, but I am unable to meet that request at this time. My boundary is. Instead of silently enduring criticism, or try, I am willing to listen to your feedback, but I will not continue to participate in a conversation where I feel personally attacked. Setting boundaries is an art that requires courage and practice. It is not about building a wall to push everyone away. It is about drawing a circle of self-respect and peace around yourself and inviting others to step into that circle with respect. It is an act of true loving kindness. Words have extraordinary power. They can build, heal, and connect, but they can also destroy, wound, and divide. In the Eightfold Path, right speech, samavaka, is a foundational ethical practice that provides a clear guide for using this power skillfully, especially when facing difficult conversations and manipulative tactics. The Buddha defined right speech as comprising 4 elements: abstaining from lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. Let's explore how to apply these 4 elements as a communication toolkit to protect your energy. 1. Speaking truthfully, abstaining from lying, the weapon against gaslighting. Gaslighting is a subtle form of psychological manipulation in which the manipulator tries to make the victim doubt their own reality, memory, and perceptions. They might say things like, "You're imagining things," or "I never said that." Application of right speech. Practicing truthful speech here does not mean trying to convince them of your truth often. That is often futile. Instead, it means holding firm to the truth of your own experience. Calmly and firmly assert your reality without needing to argue. Practical language. I understand that you remember it differently, but this is what I experienced. My feelings are real, and I will not let anyone tell me how I should feel. We have different perspectives on this, and I trust mine. In this way, you do not accept their false narrative, protecting your sanity without needing to engage in a pointless battle. 2. Speaking harmoniously, abstaining from divisive speech, neutralizing divide and conquer tactics. Toxic people often sow discord by speaking ill of one person to another, creating factions and drama. They may try to draw you into negative gossip or complaints about others. Application of right speech. Refuse to participate. Be a peacemaker. When someone starts speaking ill of another to you, skillfully redirect the conversation or make it clear that you do not want to participate. Practical language. I don't feel comfortable talking about that person when they aren't here. Or simply change the subject. By the way, I wanted to ask you about. This sends a clear message that you are not an ally in creating division. 3. Speaking kindly, abstaining from harsh speech. Extinguishing the fire with calm. When attacked with harsh language, insults, or contempt, our natural reaction is to respond in kind. But this only adds fuel to the fire, escalating the conflict and depleting the energy of both parties. Application of right speech. Maintain a calm, steady, and respectful tone even when the other person is losing control. This is not weakness. This is strength. Your calmness can de-escalate the situation surprisingly well. Practical language. Use statements that show you are listening but not agreeing with the attack. I hear that you are very angry. I can see that this issue is very important to you. This validates their emotion without validating their aggressive behavior, while protecting you from being drawn into their emotional vortex. 4. Speaking usefully, abstaining from idle chatter, the power of silence and ending the conversation. Many conversations with toxic people are futile. They go nowhere, just circling in blame, complaints, and drama. Application of right speech. Recognize when a conversation has become useless and end it skillfully. Remember, silence can be the most powerful and wise form of communication. Practical language. I think we've said all that can be said on this topic. I need some time to think about this. Can we talk again later? Or simply do not respond. You are under no obligation to participate in every argument you are invited to. Practicing right speech is a form of mindfulness in communication. It requires the alertness to recognize our intentions before we speak, and the wisdom to choose words that bring peace instead of conflict. After all the hurt, manipulation, and injustice, the thought of having to forgive the person who caused us pain can be the hardest thing to accept. Our minds protest. Why should I forgive when they are not even sorry? Doesn't forgiveness mean condoning their wrong behavior? These questions arise from a common misunderstanding of the nature of forgiveness in Buddhist wisdom. In Buddhism, forgiveness is not a gift you give to the other person. It is a gift you give to yourself. It is not about saying, what you did was okay. It is about saying, I will no longer let what you did destroy my peace. Someone once said it beautifully, to forgive is to give up all hope for a better past. We cannot change what happened, but we can change how we carry it with us in the present. Forgiveness is, fundamentally, an act of self-compassion. It is done for our own mental health, to free ourselves from the poison of resentment, hatred, and bitterness. Holding on to these emotions is like drinking poison yourself and expecting the other person to die. The person who hurt us might be on vacation, living happily, while we are still suffering terribly because of the past. Forgiveness is the act of letting go of that burden and finding lightness in our own hearts. A crucial point is that forgiveness in Buddhism is unilateral. It does not require an apology, remorse, or even the acknowledgement of the other person. It is an internal act, a personal decision to free oneself. We can absolutely forgive someone in our hearts and at the same time maintain a firm boundary of no contact to protect our safety. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. Forgiveness is internal, while reconciliation requires change and effort from both sides. Ajahn Brahm, a renowned meditation master, often shares inspiring stories of radical forgiveness, showing that even the worst behaviors can be forgiven, not because the perpetrator deserves it, but because the forgiver deserves to be at peace. Forgiveness Meditation Guide. Find a quiet space and sit comfortably. Begin by focusing on your breath and sending loving kindness to yourself for a few minutes to calm the mind. 1. Ask for forgiveness from those you have harmed. Think of times when you intentionally or unintentionally hurt others with your words or actions. Feel the pain you may have caused. In your mind, say to them, "Oh, I ask for your forgiveness for any harm I have caused you. Oh, may I be forgiven." 2. Extend forgiveness to those who have harmed you. Now, bring the image of the person who hurt you to mind. Acknowledge the pain you have suffered. Instead of dwelling in resentment, try sending these words of forgiveness to them as an act of liberation for yourself. I forgive you for the harm you have caused me, whether intentional or unintentional. I do not want to carry this burden anymore. I forgive you. Oh, may you be at peace. If it feels difficult, remember that you are doing this for your own peace. 3. Forgive yourself. This is often the most difficult step. Think of your mistakes, the times you have hurt yourself with unwholesome thoughts and actions. Embrace yourself with compassion and say, "Oh, I forgive myself for my past mistakes. Oh, I forgive myself for not knowing how to do better at the time. I give myself permission to heal and begin again." Forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. You may have to practice it many times, but each time you practice, you are loosening the chain that binds you to the past a little more. It is the final and most courageous step on the path to reclaiming your energy and peace. The journey we have taken, from understanding pain, building inner defensive tools, to learning skillful interaction, is an incredibly important process of healing and self-protection. However, Buddhism opens another higher door of perception, a radical transformation in how we view these difficult encounters. This is the leap from defense to a spiritual offense, attacking the very root of suffering and turning it into the path of enlightenment. Great masters like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the 8th century philosopher Shantideva have taught a profound doctrine. Our enemies are our most precious spiritual teachers. Why is this so? Because they provide the perfect conditions for us to practice the most important virtues on the Bodhisattva path, especially patience, Shanti. The logic behind this teaching is clear. We cannot truly practice patience with friends who always agree with and treat us well. Patience can only be forged and strengthened in the face of discomfort, injustice, and provocation. It requires the friction, the resistance that only a difficult person can provide. Therefore, the person who is vexing us is not an obstacle on the spiritual path. They are the path. They are the test, the practice ground we need to perfect this essential virtue. Shantideva even goes so far as to say that we should rejoice in having an enemy, like a treasure appearing in the house without any effort to find it, because they help us on our journey to enlightenment. A Jataka tale of the patient buffalo perfectly embodies this principle. There was a gentle buffalo that was constantly harassed by a mischievous monkey. The monkey would jump on the buffalo's back, cover its eyes, and play all sorts of annoying tricks. Instead of getting angry, the buffalo endured it calmly. When a tree spirit asked why it was so patient, the buffalo replied that the monkey was not a nuisance, but its teacher. Thanks to the monkey, it had the opportunity to practice and perfect the virtue of patience. This is the ultimate reframing. It transforms the entire experience from a negative event to be endured into a positive, even precious opportunity to be cherished for our own liberation. When we can see the toxic person not as a source of suffering, but as a strict teacher helping us graduate from life's most important lessons, then no action or word of theirs can truly harm our inner peace. We are no longer their victims. We become their grateful students. This is not an easy view to attain, but it is the pinnacle of practice, the place where suffering is truly transformed into wisdom. The path of transforming suffering into wisdom is not a destination, but a continuous practice cultivated day by day. To maintain the stability and peace that have been built, it is essential to integrate these tools into daily life, making them natural habits of the mind. Here are some core practices you can use to create a solid refuge right within yourself. Number 4, mindfulness of feeling tones, Vedana. One of the most effective ways to stop negative reactions before they escalate is to practice mindfulness of feeling tones. Throughout the day, frequently pause and ask yourself, right now is the feeling in me pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? Vedana is the foundation of our reactions. An unpleasant feeling tone, e.g. hearing a criticism, often leads to aversion. A pleasant feeling tone, e.g. being praised, can lead to greed, wanting more. By simply noting the feeling tone without judgment, an unpleasant feeling is arising, you create a precious pause. This pause allows wisdom to intervene, helping you choose a skillful response instead of being carried away by habitual automatic reactions. 5. Energetic protection visualization techniques. The mind has immense power in creating a sense of safety. You can use simple visualization techniques to create an energy shield. O protective white light. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and visualize a brilliant, warm white ball of light enveloping your entire body. Know that this light is a shield, allowing no negative energy to penetrate, while still allowing your loving kindness to radiate outward. O grounding. When you feel overwhelmed by negativity, visualize all the heavy, unpleasant energy flowing from your body down into the earth, where it is neutralized and transformed by the planet. 6. The unaccepted gift practice. Remember the powerful story of the Buddha when he was insulted by a man. The Buddha listened in silence. When the man had finished, the Buddha asked, "Sir, if someone brings you a gift, but you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "It belongs to the one who brought it." The Buddha smiled and said, "Likewise, today you bring me insults. I refuse to accept them." This is the ultimate energy protection technique. The negativity of others can only affect us if we choose to accept it, if we open the door of our mind to it. By consciously refusing the negative gift, we keep our inner space pure and peaceful. 7. Cultivating a supportive sangha. The Buddha always emphasized the importance of having good friends, good companions, kalyanamitta. We cannot walk this path alone. Actively seek out and cultivate relationships with positive people who uplift and inspire you. A healthy community, sangha, will be a source of positive energy, helping to balance out the negative influences you may encounter. They're the ones who will remind you of your good qualities when you doubt yourself, and be a refuge when you feel weak. By integrating these practices into your life, you are not just coping with difficult situations as they arise, but you are proactively building a resilient inner core, an unshakable refuge where peace is always present. You are the source of your own peace. We have traveled a long journey together. We started from the painful and exhausting feeling of dealing with toxic people, an all too familiar and real experience. We validated that pain not as a weakness, but as a natural psychological reaction to harmful behaviors. From there, we went deeper, beyond the surface of events, to look at the root of suffering. We discovered that while the behavior of others is the trigger, it is the three poisons, greed, aversion, and ignorance, in our own minds that are the gunpowder creating the emotional explosion. And in a leap of compassion, we also realize that the person who is hurting us is also a victim of their own three poisons. The conflict is no longer an attack, but a tragic collision of sufferings. With that understanding, we equipped ourselves with powerful intellectual tools, the awareness of impermanence, anicca, to let go of clinging to pain, the wisdom of not self, anat, to depersonalize attacks, and the understanding of karma, to free ourselves from the burden of resentment. Next, we learn to build an inner fortress through the cultivation of the four immeasurables, starting with the armor of loving kindness, metta, to protect ourselves, using the sword of compassion, karuna, to transform hatred, employing the alchemy of sympathetic joy, mudita, to heal envy, and finally, abiding in the unshakable fortress of equanimity, upekkha. We also learn to manifest this wisdom externally by setting compassionate boundaries as an act of right effort and using right speech to communicate skillfully, even in the most difficult situations. And finally, we reach the pinnacle of transformation, seeing the very people who cause us difficulty not as enemies, but as our most precious teachers, those who offer us the otherwise unavailable opportunity to forge patience and compassion. The final and most powerful message of this journey is this: your peace, your energy, and your happiness are not fragile things that can be taken away by others. They are qualities cultivated from within, nourished by timeless practices of wisdom and compassion. You do not need someone else to change for you to be at peace. You do not need an apology to be free. You are the source of your own peace. You are fully capable of building an unshakable heart, a solid refuge even in the midst of a storm. This journey of transforming suffering into wisdom is a continuous practice, a path we walk with every breath. If these teachings have opened a door for you and you wish to continue exploring this path of awakening, I warmly invite you to subscribe. Together we can continue to learn, grow, and cultivate the unshakable peace that is our true home.